This is not my usual content. I make writing tip videos to help people not make the same mistakes I did. I do funny little videos on strange little ways to make writing fun, like using Jazz's arty game apps to make prompts out of what would be for art. You know, crazy little things about stories with people with chainsaw hands and stuff like that. That's the kind of content I like to create. But this article from Wired on Brandon Sanderson, I had to cover it because of just how personal and juvenile and vindictive it seemed. This is not the kind of article that felt like a honest critique of an author. That's not how it came across, and I think that is why you have seen it everywhere. You've seen it on Twitter, you've seen it on YouTube, you've seen it being covered all over the place, and not in a good light. And there's a very good reason for that. Essentially, what was written was a 1-star review of Brandon Sanderson. Now, a 1-star review of a book by Brandon Sanderson is not a big deal, but this seemed to be a 1-star review of Brandon Sanderson, the person, by Wired. In anything you're doing to try and engage an audience, you have to have a hook, whether it's a YouTube video, a book, or an article. And this is where the article sets the tone in a very, very strange and juvenile way. The hook of this article appears to be Brandon Sanderson is lame. That's the hook. As they put it, I find Brandon Sanderson depressingly, story-killingly lame. That's the way that they try and get you to keep reading the article. And I suppose it worked, because I did keep reading the article. 4,500 words that could have been summed up in a very easy way. Basically saying, I don't like Brandon Sanderson, and I don't like his books. It's an opinion piece, which is fine. You can have whatever opinion you want, but it's 4,500 words telling you the same thing, which is kind of ironic because with how you could just sum that up so easily, they spend a whole 4,500 words trying to give you their point, using a whole lot of filler, a whole lot of attacks on not just Brandon Sanderson, but also the people that actually enjoy his books, talking about how they have body odor and, you know, being surprised at the fact that they actually have girlfriends. This article honestly feels like high school drama in a lot of ways. It feels so oddly personal, and I think that's largely why so many of us have been struck by it. Why is it so personal? Why are there so many words spent on his personality, on all the things that they personally didn't like about this person? Now, I will say it's not all about the supposed banality of Brandon Sanderson's person or his clothing choices or things like that, or, you know, his fans. There is at least one part of the article that talks about his writing. With all the drama that they could sum up, they talked about how the reason why more big places don't cover Brandon Sanderson could also be because his writing is just not that good. And the way that they go forth to prove this is also irksome to me as an author. Because what they do is they cherry pick pieces of the writing. In this description of Brandon Sanderson's writing, it almost feels like the height of arrogance, with the concerns of certain word usage and how, oh, it must be at a 6th grade writing level. I mean, for example, how dare Brandon Sanderson ever comment on raising eyebrows or cocking of heads? I mean, I certainly haven't done that often in my writing. Now, I wish that in the article, the writer would have made some other suggestions so that perhaps I could have learned how to write better from this author. What should I use instead, for example, of cocking one's head or frowning, for example? Funny enough, this article had me frowning quite a lot. Tolkien is one of my favorite authors of all time. If you take different parts, different sentences of Tolkien's work and just throw it out there, it can be pretty fucking bad too. When you pull writing and rip it from its context, when you rip it from the context of the story, you're not showing bad writing. You're showing bad journalism. Through this article, I felt like I actually learned next to nothing about Brandon Sanderson. What I felt like I learned was about this author's opinion, about how this author viewed other people, how they looked down on other people. That's what I got from this article. Because it wasn't just Brandon Sanderson, as I have mentioned before, and perhaps this is the thing that is bothering me most. But the author attacks fans of Brandon Sanderson with the most ridiculous commentary about body odor and girlfriends. It's just so childish that it really hurt to read. And the funniest thing of all with this article is that I have decided that I'm going to try and read Brandon Sanderson now. So if that was the goal of this Wired article, congratulations, because you now have a new person who's going to go and try and read some of Brandon Sanderson's writing. Wired, on the other hand, perhaps could use a bit of pruning before publishing. Maybe spread out a little bit more kindness. And if you're going to critique art, then perhaps critique the art and not so much the appearance of the artist.